Picture a normal Tuesday. You walk into your bank branch like you have 100 times before. You slide your card across the counter and ask for your own money. The teller looks at the screen, then looks at you. Can you give me just a moment? 2 minutes pass, then 5. When she comes back, she's not smiling anymore. I'm sorry, this account has a hold on it. You didn't steal anything. You didn't break any law you've ever heard of. You weren't hacked. So what happened? In many cases, it isn't the amount of money that gets a transaction flagged. It's something the customer says during the conversation. A few ordinary-sounding phrases can completely change how a bank views what you're trying to do. That's exactly what this video is about. Today, I'm going to show you the 3 phrases that can instantly change how your bank sees your transaction, why they trigger extra scrutiny, and exactly what to say instead. And the first one? Millions of Americans have said it thinking they were being smart. Before we continue, I want you to know where this information is coming from. I've spent years working with Social Security questions, banking issues, and the financial concerns that affect seniors every day. I've seen how small misunderstandings can lead to delays, account holds, missed benefits, and unnecessary stress. That's why I created this channel to share practical, easy-to-understand financial information completely free, so you can make better decisions and avoid problems before they happen. Here's the part most people don't know. Banks aren't being difficult for the sake of it. They're operating under federal law. Since 1970, under a law called the Bank Secrecy Act, every bank in the country is legally required to watch for and report suspicious activity, not as a courtesy, but as a condition of keeping their charter. And the numbers behind that system are bigger than most people realize. In a single recent year, U.S. banks filed more than 155,000 reports flagging suspected elder financial exploitation alone, covering upward of $27 billion in suspicious activity, according to the Treasury Department's own Financial Crimes Unit. That's one government agency, one category of fraud in 1 year. Multiply that across every kind of suspicious activity banks are required to watch for, and you start to understand why frontline employees are trained the way they are. Here's what a lot of people miss. The teller in front of you usually isn't the one making the call. At most banks today, software is quietly scoring the conversation in real time, the transaction, the behavior, and yes, the specific words being used. So before we get into the 3 phrases, I want to be clear about something. This isn't about hiding anything from your bank or finding a workaround. It's about understanding how the system is built to think, so a normal, legal transaction doesn't get mistaken for something it isn't. Every bank employee is trained in one form or another to watch for 3 categories of risk. Unusual transactions. That's the one most people think about. A big withdrawal, an odd wire, a pattern that doesn't match your normal banking. Unusual behavior. Nervousness, rushing, someone coaching you on the phone while you're at the counter. And the one almost nobody thinks about, unusual statements. What you actually say out loud while the transaction is happening. That 3rd category is where most innocent people get themselves flagged, not because they did anything wrong, but because of a handful of ordinary-sounding phrases that mean something very different inside a compliance system. Let's go through them. Phrase number 1. I want to keep this under $10,000. Here's the rule. Almost nobody explains clearly. Any cash transaction of $10,000 or more triggers something called a Currency Transaction Report, a routine form that's been required since the Bank Secrecy Act became law in 1970. It's not an accusation, it's paperwork, and banks file it constantly for completely ordinary reasons. The amount itself has never been the problem. What is a problem under federal law is deliberately structuring your cash to dodge that report, breaking one transaction into smaller pieces specifically to stay under the radar. It's called structuring, and it's a separate federal offense, whether or not the underlying money is completely legitimate. So if you walk up to a teller and say, I want to keep this under $10,000 so it doesn't get reported, you haven't just made small talk. You've described out loud the exact behavior the law was written to catch. What to say instead is almost embarrassingly simple. Just state the transaction. I'd like to deposit this. If it's over $10,000, let it be over $10,000, sign the form, and go about your day. The number itself was never the danger. Talking about the number is. Phrase number 2. Someone scammed me. This one is trickier because your instinct here is right. You should absolutely tell your bank if you've been scammed. Please don't skip that step to avoid a hassle. But how you say it changes what happens next. Saying someone scammed me in the middle of an active transaction often triggers an immediate fraud response, a hold on the account, an identity re-verification, sometimes a broader review of recent activity while the bank sorts out what's happened. That's the system doing its job, but it can mean your afternoon plans just got a lot longer. A calmer, more precise way to say the same true thing is, I believe I've been the victim of unauthorized activity, and I'd like to report it. Same information, same protection, but it signals that you're calmly reporting a problem, not that a crisis is unfolding in real time, which tends to move you into a documentation process instead of an emergency one. Phrase number 3. Why are you asking me so many questions? The third phrase isn't really a phrase, it's a refusal. Something like, why are you asking me so many questions? Or I'm not telling you what this is for. Here's why that backfires. Banks operate under a federal requirement called Know Your Customer, or KYC. Part of that requirement is being able to explain, in writing, why an unusual transaction happened. When a customer won't answer a routine question, the bank often can't close that file, so instead of moving on, the transaction gets delayed and the account gets a second look. You're generally allowed to decline to answer, but declining doesn't make the review go away. It usually just makes it slower. The better move is almost always the boring one. Answer simply, honestly, and briefly. It's for a home repair. It's a gift to my grandson. It's from the sale of a car. One sentence is usually all it takes. Step back from the 3 phrases for a second, because the real lesson isn't a memorization trick. Banks aren't trying to catch you. They're trying to build a file they can defend to a regulator if anyone ever asks about your transaction later. Their systems are built to flag risk, not to assume guilt. Those are 2 very different things, even though they can feel identical when you're standing at the counter watching a hold get placed on your own money. So here's the short version, the part you can actually use next time you're at the bank. Stay calm. A rushed or anxious tone reads the same to the system as a rushed or anxious scam call. Answer questions honestly and briefly. Never joke about fraud, and never mention reporting thresholds out loud. If you've genuinely been scammed, report it, and just report it calmly and plainly. Keep basic documentation for large or unusual transactions, a bill of sale, an invoice, an estate letter, and cooperate with identity verification. It's not personal. It's the same process for everyone. Transparency, delivered simply, is almost always the fastest way through. Think back to that Tuesday at the counter. The card that stopped working. The teller who asked you to wait. In cases like that, it's rarely the money that caused the problem. It's the shape of the conversation around it. Banks aren't looking for perfect customers. They're looking for transactions they can explain in one sentence if a regulator ever asks. Give them that sentence, and you'll rarely have a problem at all. Because sometimes the most expensive mistake isn't moving your money. It's what you say while you're doing it. If you found this video helpful, I'd love to have you join this community, and I'll see you in the next video.